Yo, what is up guys? Grim here. In today's video, we're going to be kind of taking up where we left off in the old EK video. We're going to be going on with part 2 here. So we're going to be covering inspired learning, magic find, headhunter, and some really big ticket items that you guys can kind of work towards in terms of upgrading your character and taking it to the absolute limit. So if you haven't checked out part 1, that'll be on my channel. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. You'll be able to find things like this spreadsheet here, which is going to tell you basically everything you need to know about the character you're going to be seeing here, and we can kind of move on from there. So basically, you'll know how the build works right now. I'm not going to jump in the map or anything to show. You can go check out the other video if you want to do that. What we're going to be focusing on this video is kind of the pros and cons of transitioning from normal EK, which we explained before, to inspired learning, and then eventually to headhunter. So, to start off with, I'm going to explain what inspired learning kind of is and how it works, how to activate it, and where to put it on the skill tree. So at the moment, we're using the pretty standard skill tree that I showed you guys last time. You've got a path of building link to that one in the other video. It's exactly how it is in the other video, and we're using the Headhunter. So basically, when you're playing this build, you're going to go from traditional EK with all of your attack gear on, spell damage, all that kind of stuff, the rares, to inspired learning. After you've finished your atlas off, you've got everything kind of unlocked, all the T10s and stuff like that, or basically whatever strategy you were kind of trying to work towards, you've got that all locked in and you're happy with it, and you've kind of got a bit of a map pool ready to go. Your elder and all that stuff's in the right place. Then that's when you go, all right, time to buy my magic find gear or put it on. Time to respec into inspired learning. So you're going to go from your current build, which you've got here, and you're going to take a few points out of defense, mainly over this area, and you're going to swap into something looking a little bit like this. And the reason for the kind of having to swap out for a lot of the points here is you need to invest in all of these notables near the jewel sockets in Templar and Shadow. And the reason for that is the inspired learning jewel, which goes over here and over here. This is a ring of blades, but that's just a little bit of a mistake there. This should be inspired learning, which we'll add in now. There we go. So that's where you'll put those. And in here we'll have our ring of blades. Okay, so let's get straight into it. What is inspired learning and why is it so good? So when you're playing PoE, you're going to notice rare monsters in the game. They'll be colored yellow and they'll have modifiers on them. When you kill these monsters with inspired learning on them, you're going to steal one of their unique modifiers on them. These are things like increased attack and move speed auras, increased character size and health, physical damage. There's one called Soul Eater, which makes it so the more enemies you kill, the faster you move and damage you do. So basically, lots of really broken, powerful stuff, which is very good to have. It's going to increase your clear speed and damage and allow you to sort of cheese bosses at the end of the dungeon. Because if you run through the whole entire dungeon at a very quick pace, you're going to have 3 or 4 buffs on you at least. When you get to the boss, you're going to be doing absurd amounts of damage in general, and you'll be able to kind of just one-shot the boss before it can even do anything. That's the general idea behind the kind of inspired learning / headhunter gameplay. And when you move into higher group and kind of gameplay, and you're putting things like beyond on the map and stuff like that, it only gets like more and more powerful. The more monsters in the map, the more damage you do because the more mods you have. So that's kind of why inspired learning and headhunter is so good and why we want to use it. So inspired learning only steals 1 mod. However, it can stack, so you can use 2 of these jewels in kind of combination. You could use 3 or even 4 if you could figure out how to do it on the tree, but 2 is kind of the sweet spot. You're not sacrificing all of your defenses for inspired learning. You're sacrificing just a bit to get the 2. If you wanted a 3rd one, you'd probably have to come down over here, and that's really messy and it's not worth it at all. So the first one over here, the requirement for inspired learning is to have 4 notable kind of skill points in its radius. As you can see here, this orange circle is its radius, and you need 4 of notables, which are these things here. They've got this kind of star pattern on them here. So you need 4 of them allocated in its radius. So as you can see over here, we can count 1, 2, 3, and 4. A lot of people don't see that this is a notable in the radius, but yeah, so we can just not take this one and just take these 3, 4 here. So on the right hand side of the tree, near the shadow, you want to be taking Infused, which is +1 power charge. We have a lot of power charges anyway. and Frenetic, which is 1 Frenzy Charge, and then finally Blood Drinker, which is just a bit of life. We get this anyway in our builds, so we've already got that, so we only really need to allocate 3 over here. However, you can see that's quite a big point investment from kind of normal. We would normally get this anyway, so we've got 1, 2, that's 5 points just for 1 Inspired Learning Jewel over here. And then on the opposite side, the Templar, we're going to be taking Overcharge, Faith and Steel, Devotion, and Endurance. Now, unfortunately, it's not the same case over here as it is at the Shadow. As you can see here, Elementalist is not in range of the kind of radius here. If I put that in there, you'll be able to see that there. There we go. Yeah, so you can see it's not in range, unfortunately, and that's not in range either. So you have to take these 4 here, which definitely aren't great, but Inspired Learning is just worth it just by itself alone. So we take those 4 over there. So now you've got double Inspired Learning on your build. This is kind of the gateway to your kind of clear speed dreams in terms of all that stuff. Again, that skill tree for specifically Inspired Learning will be in the description. I'll be linking the path of building for that one. So you've got Inspired Learning now, so whenever you kill a rare monster, you're going to be getting the buffs from it. That'll increase your clear speed a lot, and when you play in a group, it's going to be even better. Because you'll be able to put things like Beyond on there and not lose any money at all because you're playing with multiple people, and the cost is kind of shared around. So the more rare monsters in your map, the faster your clear speed is now going to become, which is pretty crazy. And it's really great. So after you've kind of set up Inspired Learning, the next thing you want to be looking at is Magic Find. Magic Find in this game is definitely one of the most powerful things in the game. And the reason for that is if you invest like a ton of currency in a map, with someone without Magic Find might just break even, but if you have Magic Find, you'll be making like 20, 30, 40 C on top of that initial investment. So kind of Magic Find will take something which wasn't profitable really, it was just only just profitable, like something like vault farming, and it'll push it over the edge and make it very profitable because you're increasing the amount of currency and divination cards you get by like 30-40% in some cases. So with that increase, we can kind of really abuse a lot of the kind of investment options we have in maps and really get a lot of returns out of those. And that's in part some of the reason why sexton prices are so high. When you get 6 people and you get someone with full Magic Find in like a shaped vault with all the sextons on there, you just get an absurd amount of currency drops and map drops, and well, not map drops, but currency and divination card drops. So that's kind of like why Magic Find is so important. So when you're kind of picking up your Magic Find items, you really want to be looking for a Bisco's Collar, which is very expensive. I've noticed that. 2 Venters, we'll get into that though. 2 Venters Gambles, and some Goldworm boots for this build. All the other options aren't really too worth it. We can't use a Magic Find weapon, unfortunately, and the chest piece, which we could use, is called Greed's Embrace, and it has 20% less movement speed on it, which is a bit of a killer. So these are the Magic Find items we want to be using. If you don't have a Headhunter, you can also use Bisco's Leash. That's got some Magic Find on it as well. So, for your Goldworm boots, first of all, you want to be trying to get ones with 19 to 20% quantity. 18% is okay as well, but basically the more the better when you're looking for these boots. That's kind of a rule of thumb for all the Magic Find items. The more the better. You just really want to try and get as much item quantity as possible on your build. So with your Goldworm, they must have the Leech enchant on them. If you've watched the last video, you'll know how important that is. The build doesn't really function at all without the Leech enchant. You're going to run out of mana constantly, and you're going to have a bad time. So the way I would suggest doing it is you can either try and buy a pair of Goldworm boots with the enchant on them and then divine them to a high amount of item quantity, or you can buy a pair of high ones and try and get the leech roll on it yourself. If you're going to try and buy them a high roll with the leech roll, it's going to be very, very expensive for you, and they can go like up to multiple exalts for a pair of those. So I would either run the lab myself with a good pair, or I would just buy a crappy pair with the roll on there and divine it myself. That's how I would do. I'd probably take the divine route because I don't like running lab, but yeah, that's your options. So those boots are really important. Get those. 20% is nuts. It's just going to go on D&D here. And you really want to be using those. Next up, we've got the really big, expensive pieces here for Magic Find. Bisco's Collar. So in terms of how worth it is to use this, it's currently kind of unclear, but people have kind of guessed that it's about 20 to 24% increased item quantity. That's kind of what it works out to be, which is a lot of item quantity. It's definitely a massive boost. However, it is very expensive. I think it's around 14 or 15 exalts right now. It might be a bit lower or higher depending on when you're watching this or what time of the day you're watching this. But it's really worth it. But when you're buying one of these, it doesn't matter how much rarity it has on it at all. You can completely ignore the rarity roll. All you're looking for is that increased item quantity roll. That's what matters, and that's what you want to try and pay your money for. So a lot of people will buy the worst rolled possible biscos they can find to try and save a bit of money there, and they'll take that and they'll use divine orbs on it until they get a high quantity roll. So that's what I would recommend doing. So buy one off PoE trade, doesn't matter what item rolls on it at all, and then buy some divine orbs and throw a few divine orbs at them. I think they're fairly cheap because everyone's rolling channel at the moment, so you can get a really good rolled biscos that way. In terms of how much it costs, just raw amount there, it is obviously very expensive, but it's well and truly worth it. You will get it paid back to you as long as you're doing a few maps after you buy it, obviously. If you're just looking to like beat the game or anything, you don't need this. Just continue on your merry way without Magic Find. But if you're looking to make those massive amounts of money from like Vault or anything like that, you want to be getting a Biscos as soon as you can. Okay, so this one's the one everyone is always asking me about. Venter's Gamble, is this one good? Is that one good? How like, how do I tell? All that kind of stuff. So we're going to go into that now. So to start off with, Venter's Gamble, it must have positive increased item quantity on it. Because remember, that's the stat we're stacking here. We want as much of that as possible. That's going to increase the amount of currency we get, the amount of divination cards we get, the amount of everything we get, basically, apart from maps. It's really important to note, item quantity does not increase the amount of maps you get when it's found on gear. So don't be like thinking that's why you're not sustaining. Item quantity, no effect on maps. Okay, so we've established we want the highest amount of quantity we can on our Venter's Gamble. So I wouldn't buy any Venters which has below 8% on it. So you're looking for 8%, 9%, or 10% on your Venter's Gambles. And I really like to get a nice high life roll on mine, as you can see here, 59 and 52, because I like to be a little bit beefy so I don't get one shot by those nasty abyss monsters. So you're looking for a pretty high life roll on your rings here. A lot of quantity, that's the most important part. You can take a bit of a hit on the life to get more quantity. And then finally, you want to be looking for positive resists. Doesn't really matter what they are. But if you're having resist problems, then you might need to be looking for ones with a bit higher resist. My general advice on the resists is if you can make it work on your character and not go like under the 75% resist cap here, then it's fine. And if you're rolling with support constantly, an aura bot, then you can actually afford to take negative resists because their purities will give you enough resistances to wear really bad venters. So yeah, as long as you can make the resists work and not go below the 75%, then you're pretty much good to go. However, you will be under the Elo weakness cap. So you kind of want to be shooting for that 100% range on all of them in your hideout without any support in your party. So that's kind of what you're going for there. Just try and make it work. Jump in Path of Building, throw in the Venters that you found, and as long as you resist tap, that should be good to go. Next up, the rarity roll. This is the one everyone's like, oh, it's got negative rarity on it. Does it matter? No, it does not. Rarity is actually pretty bad in this game. Basically, all that it's going to be affecting is how many uniques you're going to be getting dropped. And at that, there's not too many good uniques in the game currently, which will just drop on the global scale. So you're looking at things like shavs, combs, some unique jewels. Those are really the only things that sell. Increased item rarity doesn't affect currency drops. It doesn't affect divination card drops or anything like that. So it's fine to get like a negative 30 increased rarity Venters. That's completely acceptable. I wouldn't worry too much about it. I try and shoot for one which has neutral kind of increased rarity. As you can see, this one has 17% reduced rarity items on the Venters, but then it balances out a little bit from the implicit there. But as I said, I would happily wear a negative 30% increased rarity Venters, no problems asked. Unique drops aren't going to attribute that much to how much currency you're making in maps. It's mainly going to be sextant drops and currency drops and a few divination cards at the moment. So that's kind of how that works. And now we've kind of gone over all the magic find gear that you're going to be needing. So now you know about inspired learning, where to put them on the tree, kind of what the benefits are, and how you want to be picking up your magic find gear and what you're looking for it on it. So that's fantastic. You're pretty much well equipped now. So you've got your Atlas done, you've got all your Magic Find gear on, and you've got your Inspired Learning, and you're ready to go. You're going to be farming up a storm, guys. You're going to be making heaps of currency, and you're going to basically have your pick of the litter in terms of what strategy you want to be doing. So you can now do Vault because if you've got all your Magic Find gear on, and you should be able to make some money there, especially if you're playing with other players. You can do Channel, Atoll. I've seen some people doing like Ghetto and stuff. There's lots of different options this league. It's pretty diverse in terms of how you can make your money. You basically can run any map as long as it can drop yellow sextants or red sextants and just sell those and then make some money. It's really fantastic for new players this league because you can basically do anything and just sell those sextants and you'll make money at least. So that's really fantastic, really easy to make money, and then that Magic Find gear is just going to make it even better. So kind of where I wanted to take this video next is just talking about the ultimate kind of end game situation you can take this build to. We're talking about like +1 chests and how to make them, Headhunter, and all that kind of good stuff. So there's basically 3 massive big ticket items that you can get for this build after that kind of initial setup and past the kind of uniques here that we've got on. So you've got all your Magic Find gear, you've got all that done. The next big ticket item on your list, on the shopping list, is definitely the Headhunter. So what this is going to allow you to do is respec all your Inspired Learning points, which I'll bring back up here. So you'll be able to take off all of this stuff, all that kind of stuff here. I actually want to keep that, but you'll be able to respec this and it'll give you a ton of points, as you can see up here. Look at that, we got so many points to play with. And that'll let you go back and then get all that life that you had to respec to put those Inspired Learnings in. And the kicker is that not only are you getting more stats, but the funny thing is you're actually getting a more powerful effect of the Inspired Learning. So the Inspired Learning steals 2 modifiers because we have 2 of them. The Headhunter steals all of them. You're just going to get every single modifier on every rare monster that you kill, and that is leagues better than the Inspired Learning. So you're basically replacing those Inspired Learnings and almost over doubling their effect in some cases because you're going to Headhunter. You're getting an insane belt. It's got a lot of life on it. It's got a lot of stats on it. That actually fixes a lot of problems with the build. That amount of dexterity on a belt is incredible. So you're getting a pretty well statted belt. And then also you're getting like 15 points on the skill tree, which lets you get more life, more defenses, more damage if you want. Basically just freeing up a lot of space to kind of do what you want with the build. So that's why Headhunter is so powerful. And the way I would suggest going about getting one is you can either go one of 2 ways. You can go with the doctor cards, which is what I personally do. This is probably the most effective way of going for them because it kind of lets you collect the Headhunter bit by bit and it's not as heavily influenced by massive market swings. So when you're going for the divination cards, you're kind of picking it up one every 1 or 2 days, maybe one every 3 days if you're kind of playing at a bit of a slow pace. And you're going to pick one up and then you've got it. So the market price isn't going to change on you. However, I've had in past leagues when I'm trying to get my Headhunter, I've gone for like a straight up belt, just buying the belt. And what that'll kind of leave you susceptible to is an ever moving kind of target. So as the league goes on, generally Headhunter becomes more expensive. Depending on the league, this one, it's definitely become more expensive. So as like either exalts become more expensive or the Headhunter becomes more expensive. Let's say it's 100 exalts when you start grinding, and then it moves up to 110 exalts, and then further on as we go through the league. That's kind of that moving target that I talked about, and when I was grinding up the second one of these, I definitely experienced that. So buying the cards, you kind of lock in the price point at each point, and you're never going to be susceptible too much to that moving price point. So I'd go with the cards, buy the doctor cards, don't buy the belt. But if you kind of got a lot of money running around, you can just buy the belt if you want. So Headhunter acquired, you guys have got that in. What's next? How can you push it even further? So the next thing up is going to be a corrupted 6-link +1 skill gem chest piece. That's kind of your next biggest upgrade, and I can kind of show you what that's going to look like in terms of the DPS here. So we'll import my current build up here, and I'll kind of show you the massive increases you're going to be getting. It's pretty massive. I don't currently have mine yet. I've been getting very, very unlucky with Vol Orbs, but we can see here kind of what we're going to be looking at. So we'll import all this kind of stuff. So we'll just go to configuration here and turn all our stuff that we've got. Yep. turn all that stuff on. We've got lucky crit chance. We'll just put on a normal standard boss here, and we'll swap over to EK. So as we can see here, it's pretty good damage. It's not bad. This is without Headhunter buffs or Ash or anything like that. Throw on our Taste of Hate and all that good stuff there. So currently we don't have a +1 chest. But when we do, we'll just throw on one here. We'll generate it up. Corrupted items. +1 to skill gems. Where is it? I'm blind. Where is it, guys? How blind can I be? This is a disaster. Anyway, I'm gonna have to. Yeah, there we go. Wow, it was right there all along. Okay, so we've got +1 to level of socketed skill gems. Add that into the build, and we'll see how much our damage goes up here. So we can see there. Wow, that's a massive jump. I'm gonna kind of explain the reason for that. So that's kind of yeah, wow, that's really, really huge. So it's basically a 63k jump, or 64k if you want to be precise. So the reason for this is when you're corrupting a chess piece like that, what it's kind of going to do, as you can see there, +1 level of socketed gems, not skill gems or just anything like that. So we can see that's going to increase every single one of these by +1. So we're going to have standard a level 22 EK and a level 5 in power because of that. So Empower is basically going to make that level 22 EK a level 23, and then we're going to get the kind of 3 skill gems that we already had on top of that. So level 26 EK from that. So we went from 24 EK to 26. So that's a really massive bump up there. But not only that, do we increase our other 4 support gems here from 20 to 21. So that's why it's such a massive damage increase. And I'll kind of explain here how you're going to be able to get one of these. So first things first, you're going to need a corrupted chest piece. Let's see if I can find one here. I think I have a Vol's Protector here. I can't find it right now. But what you're going to want to do is you want to buy as many Lionized Visions as you can with 95 or higher health. You're going to want to throw Varlorbs at them until you get one which says +1 to skill gems, as we just saw there. You're going to want to bring it over to the Varici the Varici bench here. You're going to need level 8 Varici for this, or you know someone who has level 8 Varici. And what you're going to do is you're going to chuck it in here. It will be corrupted, of course, but what Varici 8 allows you to do is modify corrupted items. So what you can do here is we can do exactly what we did to obtain our first chest piece. So we can do the Varici trick. We can go 2 sockets over here. I'll throw this in here. You can go 2 sockets over here. And then you can color them both blue, and then you can go 2 socket, 3 socket, 2 socket, and then so on and so forth until you hit that next blue, and then move on to the green, the next green, and then finally 6 socket and get that red. So the catch here is, you might be thinking, hey, that's a bit broken. Why doesn't everyone have Varici 8 and do that? Is because, as you can see here, the cost of everything, not only will it cost the 10 jewels, it'll also cost, in addition, for every currency you're spending, that many Varlorbs. So as you can see here, 5 sockets, that's going to be 70 jewelers and 70 Varlorbs. So as you can see, it's going to become very expensive very quickly. As Varlorbs are around, you can maybe get them 1 to 2, but generally they're 1 to 1.5, so they're around a chaos each. So that's kind of 70 chaos per attempt. So that's really expensive, but as you could see before, the amount of DPS you get from doing this is just colossal. It's probably going to be a 3,000 or 4,000 chaos chest piece if you're lucky, but yeah, as I said, it's very worth it in my opinion. That's kind of what I'm working towards now. It's what I'm throwing on my currency at, and what I'm kind of having fun grinding for at the moment. So that's one, like a really big kind of goal that you guys can shoot for. It's going to allow you to melt bosses in seconds. Basically, when you're playing with supports and stuff, a lot of their kind of multipliers and stuff like that are based off your base damage. So Hatred, when you're playing with an Aura bot, is multiplying your base damage, which is the EK, and they're multiplying the lightning damage with Wrath, which is a lot of your damage from physical to lightning. So getting this +1 chest piece is going to allow you to just be so much more powerful in groups. So it's really good to have, and that's why I'm kind of moving towards it now. It'll increase your clear speed a lot. So now you've got the +1 corrupted chest piece. When you're at this point, you're basically rolling in the dough. You've got so much money. It's probably going to be fairly far into the league. But if you're still looking to upgrade your character, the final purchase you want is going to be a Watcher's Eye. And these things are massively expensive. That's definitely not what we wanted. We want to go to our guides again, which is here. So these things are massively expensive. I kind of went into a little bit of detail with what one you'd want. And the one that you want is the Hatred one. So it's going to increase your base critical strike chance by a ton. It's basically going to be a pseudo kind of critical strike gem. And then you also want the physical to cold conversion on the gem as well. So you want to double up that hatred one. So when you're playing solo, you can just crush all the content. And I can kind of show you what that's going to do to your DPS in Path of Building here. We'll chuck on Watcher's Eye here. And we're going to do the hatred one. And we're going to get the crit. We'll just crank that up here because we're going to be, obviously, if you're buying the scene, you're going to be able to divine it to perfection. So there's no problem there. We'll add that to the build. And this is the one here. So with our +1 chest piece on, and with that, we've got almost 400k DPS, which is a ton. And again, it all kind of, you're going to have a big chain effect when you're playing in a group. When you're playing with a curse bot or an aura bot or anything like that, this is going to just crank up the DPS even more, and you're going to be able to crush those bosses in no time. So that's kind of the ultimate kind of point that you can take the build to. I mean, you could take it further. You could corrupt your gold roam boots to get frenzy charges and stuff like that. But I think that's kind of excessive. And when you kind of get the character to this point, I think it's pretty much done. You can't really or shouldn't take it any further without investing even more insane amounts of currency. And at that point, it's pretty much all RNG unless you can buy the piece you want. So that's kind of my take on it. And hopefully this guy's kind of rounds out their other guide and shows you like how far you can push it, gives you a bit of info about magic find and all that good stuff. Just to conclude here, a lot of people ask, why do you get the increased projectile speed enchant on the helmet? And there's really no other good alternatives to this one. The only other good one I would take is the lightning golem one, which basically juices your lightning golem up a lot, and he'll give you far better bonuses. The EK damage one is just not too much damage increase in terms of kind of raw damage, and it's not really what you want. So the increased projectile speed is just going to allow you to hit more things on the screen, and that's basically going to give you better clear speed overall. It also makes it a lot more comfortable to play. So that's going to be my kind of end game guide for EK. There's going to be a lot of more videos coming up. I've got a few kind of things which I need to get around to and tick off the list. Namely, that's covering my Blade Vortex character and kind of how that went. And I'm going to take you through the step-by-step kind of sex and stuff. In terms of the website, next thing we're adding is all the map information you'd ever want in the whole game. That's going to be coming up. I'll give you a sneak preview at that. We can take a look over here. So as you can see with that, we're just doing the data at the moment. There's a ton of stuff. So basically, you're going to be able to see a meta ranking. You're going to have kind of what environment it is, what boss it is, kind of every divination card which is valuable, which drops in it. 3-to-1 recipe and how to get it from a 3-to-1 recipe, how many sections can go on it, and how many blocks it has. So that's coming up. That's going to be added to the website. It's basically going to be my 3.1 spreadsheet, updated and improved massively. So you guys can look forward to that. It's going to be coming out in the coming week. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate the support, overwhelming support actually, for everything that I'm doing here, and expect lots more content coming up. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Cheers. I'll see you in the next one.